Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am working on a thank you card. Recently, my son went on a Mu Alpha Theta, which is a math group. I want to say sorority, but that's not what it is. Trip to Florida, and his math teacher, which happens to be like the number 3 mathematician in the state of Texas, put that all together, and she worked really hard, you know, behind the scenes and with these boys directly to prepare them for this trip. And so I got together with some of the parents that their sons went on this trip, and I wanted to do something nice for her and thank her for all of her hard work. I know teachers do a lot of prep work behind the scenes. They do a lot of work and thinking and just a lot of things behind the scenes that nobody ever sees and gets kind of taken for granted. So I wanted to thank her, and this is the card that I came up with for her. So today I am using several products from ZEST Stamp, and one of the things that I'm using is this die set here. This is the beautiful Buttercup. It is a very simple, very sweet die set. If you've been around my channel at all, you know that I am not I don't get a lot of joy from doing a whole bunch of die cutting, especially if the die cutting has a whole bunch of teeny tiny fiddly bits. I really don't like it then. And this die set is perfect. Each flower has 3 pieces, including the stem, and they're very large. They're not teeny tiny and kind of cumbersome to put together. And so I've really enjoyed these kind of die sets from ZEST Stamp, and they have several of these that are along the same lines, just variety of flowers. And I am quickly building up a stash of those, and I'm becoming a huge fan. So what you see me doing here is I went ahead and did a bunch of die cutting off screen. I used scrap HAMMERMILL cardstock from my stash, and I'm using ZEST Stamp Positively Saturated inks today, and then I will bring in a Concord and 9th ink later on, but the ZEST Stamp inks I'm using are from their Positively Saturated line, and I am using, let me see here, I'm using Zest, Honey, and Butter. And then the green I will show you in a little bit is Fairway, just to do some very simple ink blending on these die cuts here. I could have cut them from colored cardstock, but I kind of treat my colored cardstock like gold because it is so much more expensive. And so I have, you know, invested in my inks and re-inkers for especially these larger ink pads or inks that I use quite often. And so I just decided to do some very simple ink blending on them. I have a 1/2 inch mini ink blending brush. I purchased this off of Amazon, and I just stuck these to my waffle flower grip mat just to hold them in place so that I wasn't chasing teeny tiny pieces all around. Another option would be to just leave them in the die cut paper and ink blend them that way. That is also another option. And I'm not doing anything fancy here. I'm just slapping on kind of a lighter color, which is the butter, onto the parts that are going to go on the front. So like I said, these flowers are very easy to put together. There's only 2 layers to the flowers themselves, a larger piece and then a piece that goes in the front. And so the piece that goes in the front, or the smaller piece, is what I'm doing in the lighter butter color. And then the larger piece I'm doing in the Zest. And then just to give them a little bit of color variation, I am using the honey, no, what is this? No, I used butter and honey. And then to give them a little more definition, I am using a teeny tiny detailing blender brush that, again, I purchased from Amazon to add just some details. So to the part that is going in the front, I am putting it at the base of the flower, and then the part that goes in the back, or the larger piece, I am putting it toward the top and kind of trying to blend it down. The reason why I didn't do it at the base of the larger piece is because that's going to be covered up by the smaller piece, so it would be a waste of time. You'd never see it. So again, just adding a little bit of detail to the bottom of the smaller piece and to the top, and kind of the divots or indentations in to the larger piece. Once that was done, I set them aside in kind of the pairs that they're going to go into. And I have this die set from my stash. This is actually a Sizzix. It's called the CROCHET die set, and it just has several like very detailed, almost lacy looking borders to it. And I went ahead and cut that again from some scrap HAMMERMILL cardstock. I showed you some Colorplan Amethyst cardstock. That is cut to A2 size, and that is going to go on the front of our side fold A2 card base, which is again made out of HAMMERMILL cardstock. And I'm just going to do some layering with that. But before I get to that, I need to put our greenery together. Again, I could have used a paper pouncer for this. That probably would have been quicker, but if I do it this way, it gives the greenery some variation and a little bit more interest. So this is the Fairway ink from Simon Says Stamp, their Positively Saturated line. I'm just using those same 1/2-inch blending brushes and trying to apply a pretty solid color toward kind of that, the top of it. And then where it's just, the stem, there's no like branching of it. I don't really care if that's splotchy or uneven. Like I said, this kind of gives it a little bit more interest, whereas if I used a paper pouncer, I would much more effectively give it a solid wash of color. So if that is what you're looking for, I would use a paper pouncer. These are pretty thin. I am holding them in place with my finger, but I don't really have to. They stay on the grip mat pretty well. If you wanted to, you could use a sticky mat. I have some of those. I just have a tendency to reach for my grip mat here from Waffle Flower more often than not. Once I get a wash of color on these, I am ready to put things together. But before we get to that, I have this sentiment set from Tailored Expressions. This is called Hello Friend, and I'm going to use the one that says thank you and the little die that comes with it. I really like the style of this, and I felt like it worked really well with the card that I had in mind today. To stamp this, I am using some Eggplant ink from Concord and 9th. It is a very, very deep purple, which I felt matched the Amethyst cardstock that I was using today. I didn't feel like I had anything dark enough in the right hue for from the Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated line, so I felt like this was the better option. I just attached that to an acrylic block. If you are not confident in your free range stamping, so to speak, you could absolutely put that into a stamp positioner and stamp it out that way. But I felt fairly confident, and if not, it's just a piece of paper. I can always restamp it. So once I had that stamped out, I am going to take that to my die cut machine and die cut that out using the coordinating die and set that off to the side. Now I'm going to start putting these flowers together. Like I said, they are very simple. There's 3 pieces total. I just put a little dollop of glue toward the base of the flower on the smallest part, and then I lined it up very easily with the larger piece. Then to put the stem on, there is a longer stem and a shorter stem. I actually did this wrong the first pair, but it's not really that big of a deal. But the longer stem obviously goes with the larger flower, the smaller with the smaller. But really at the end of the day, these are your flowers, and there really isn't too terribly much difference in them. So, you do you. But it goes the same process. I'm just adding a very thin line of glue, especially for this part of the stem, the greenery. It's very thin. Another way to do this, if you are concerned about glue oozing out, is to, before you die cut these, put a piece of double-sided adhesive sheet on the back of it, and then when you die cut them, they will essentially be like stickers, and then you don't have to worry about glue oozing out, and that may actually make your process go a little bit quicker. But really, this did not take very long. These are super simple to put together. Once I had them all put together, I wanted to put something on the inside, and I got my hands on this Inside Greetings 1, which tells me there will be more, and that will be fantastic. This is from Simon Says Stamp and Kathy Zilski. It is a collab between those two, and it is wonderful. It has a whole bunch of greetings, like the name says, that go on the inside of your card. I have always struggled and or forgotten to put something on the inside of the card, and if it wasn't easy, I never did it. I know Amy from Prairie Paper and Ink is super fantastic about putting something on the inside of the card and really finishing it off that way, and I just failed to do that. And so this set I got my hands on, and I was like, okay, I'm going to leave this out, and then I will remember to use it. This is the first time I've remembered to use it, and I've had it in my stash for quite some time now. So, there's that. So I chose the one that says thanks for everything and stamped that again in that Eggplant ink from Concord and 9th. Again, just free range stamped it. I did notice I had a fuzzy on there. Thankfully, I found that before I stamped it down, but it stamped beautifully. And then I discovered that when I was putting my card together, that I missed a flower. So I ended up gluing that on the inside of the card, but I don't film that. But that really does help finish off the inside of the card. And I just wrote in a black pen around it, around the sentiment and the flower, and it worked out just fine. So now we're ready to start kind of putting things together. My inspiration came from a card I saw on Pinterest. They use tulips and like a deep teal background, and then these super vibrant pink tulips, which I am a sucker for tulips. So I was really drawn to that card, and being a sucker for tulips, you think I would have tulips in my stash, but I don't. But I thought these buttercups would work really well. I have no idea what my son's teacher's favorite color is, but I thought these looked really well together. Purple and yellow are complementary colors, and I thought they worked really well together. So here I have a scrap of HAMMERMILL cardstock that I just pounced some of that ZEST ink onto it and let it dry. I just did direct to paper with the ink pad, and I just cut a 5.5 by 1.5 inch strip of that, and then I'm going to put that border right there. In my inspiration piece, they actually had just a strip of paper, but I've had these borders in my stash for a coon's age and just never used them. So I thought that would be a good place to add some more texture, incorporate another color, kind of give the eye a place to rest, and also help kind of, you don't necessarily want to break up your card, but just added another component that made the card look appealing to the eye. I'm just going to use some liquid glue. I use reptile glue. But I know Simon Says Stamp, at the filming of this video, this is going to go up in September, and I'm filming this in July, has recently come out with a new liquid adhesive that everybody seems to really like. But I use reptile glue. That's just what I use. So anyway, I'm just attaching that in kind of some of the thicker parts of this little lacy border here, and then I'm going to attach that to my card. I did notice that I had some of the white of my card base sticking out, and I'm just going to take that to my trimmer and trim that off and even out and kind of touch up the top and bottom of the card here. Once that was done, I did kind of play around for a little bit and lay out these flowers. I wanted it to look like there was just a whole bunch of them, just a big old bed of them. And some of them, the stems are laying on top of the flowers. I will show you how I fixed that because I didn't really like it in some spots, and in other spots it didn't bother me. What you see me doing here is press and seal. I just have a little tiny thin piece of it, and I am pressing that into these die cuts here. And then I'm going to pick this up all as one piece. This means that I don't have to individually pick up and place down each one of these die cuts. It just really speeds the process along. And I'm just putting a dot of glue in the middle of each of these flowers. Then I can pick this up again in its entirety, flip it over, and put it right back where I had it. Some of these I will have to go back and kind of put in a little bit more glue on them just to make sure that they don't fall off the card, because nobody wants a falling apart card. That would be sad. And then I'm going to give them just a second to dry, and then I will peel off that press and seal. There were some stems that I didn't like that they were hanging over. So what I'm doing is I am just cutting them a little bit beyond the flower that they are laying on top of. And then I'm just going to lift up that flower a little bit and tuck the stem behind. That way it doesn't look like, the stem doesn't lay on top of the flower, and it looks like it's just kind of disappearing behind it, and it's a flower that's tucked behind the one in front of it. I just liked that look a lot better. Then when I'm done with that, I'm going to flip this all over and cut off all of the stems that are hanging off and any flowers that are hanging off. And then we are ready to do the sentiment and some finishing touches. To give a little more interest to my sentiment, I'm using some Dollar Tree foam squares and putting those on the back of it. They fit perfectly on the back of this. And then I'm going to peel off those backers and set that kind of in that bottom right corner. I felt like there was a little spot where it kind of nestled in perfectly there. And then the sentiment is done. And then just to add a touch of sparkle, I'm grabbing my Spectrum Noir Clear Glitter Brush Pen to add just a little bit of shine and sparkle to these flowers, and then this card is complete. So I appreciate you spending time with me. I hope you felt inspired, and we will see you next time.